Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Lillee Jean Talks Live. I am here with David Lee Summers. Hello.
Hello, good to be here.
Good. So, we were talking a little bit before. You have a convention.
I am at a convention. I'm at Tucson, which is a science fiction convention in Tucson, Arizona. And in fact, I'm here with a few of the people that have been involved in the Museum of the Omniverse project, including Eric Schumacher, who's going to be here
Wait,
later tonight.
Eric's there? Oh
Eric
my
will
God,
be
I had
here,
no clue.
yes.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. Okay, okay, cool, cool. I saw from your website you've been at like a lot. Like in August, you had back and forth a lot of conventions.
Yeah,
What is that
I was
like?
at yeah, it's a lot of fun. I find conventions are one of my big networking opportunities to work with other authors, to meet artists, to just find opportunities of things to do that I really like. And there's I do some editorial work, so that becomes kind of a place where I'm able to network and find people who might submit to my small press and
Like a
to other
magazine, right?
projects. Sorry.
You have like a magazine, right?
I did run a magazine for a number of years called Tales of the Talisman magazine that I did for 10 years. Now I'm pretty much just doing book publishing.
Cool, cool.
So like one of my authors is here at this convention, a fellow named Don Braden, who
Okay.
wrote the books Upstart Mystique and Beyond Mystique. So it's always a lot of fun to see him. He's a retired high school teacher, so very, very savvy guy who used to teach high school students a lot about ethics and logic using science fiction.
Very cool.
So it's kind of fun. Again, you get to meet all kinds of people from all kinds of walks of life who have all of their experiences that they can talk about. And I like being able to find those people and bring their experiences to the reader community.
I gotta ask, do you feel a little bit like a celebrity when you go to these conventions? A little bit like, have you ever had like a celeb moment where somebody wants like your autograph or like anything like that?
Well, the big one was actually just at Mile High Con back in
Okay.
October. Someone came up and wanted a selfie with me, and that was
Oh,
a
you
lot
probably were?
of fun.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
cool, cool.
And this was in front of one of my science talks, so I was being all geeky science guy,
Oh my God. Did you pose like weird or did you like pose like you were expecting it? Like
No, I think
character.
I posed like I was expecting it, but I had my
Oh,
Bill Nye bow tie on and
oh my God.
everything.
Oh my God. Oh my God. You know what? I knew you'd be great because you have Hadrosaur Productions. Isn't
Productions.
that like a herbivore sort of
Yeah, it
one?
was a type of dinosaur.
Dinosaur.
The reason for there's it's kind of a big long story on the reason for the name, but
Right.
part of the reason is that hadrosaurs actually were the longest surviving dinosaur of all the dinosaurs. So they're the most successful dinosaurs. So that was
I
part of
get it.
it.
Okay.
And also part of it was also because when my wife got her master's degree at the University of Arizona here in Tucson,
Very cool.
and her thesis was basically doing her business project was basically figuring out how to do a small press science fiction publisher and publishing house. And so the idea was, and the year that we founded this was the year that they found the first hadrosaur fossil in Pima
Oh, that's
County.
very
So
cool.
there's a lot of synchronicity with the hadrosaur. It's also the idea that some of the hadrosaurs have
Longevity.
almost like that unicorn horn on them. So it's the creature of fantasy meets creature of science fiction. So that was,
Very cool.
yeah.
There's like a lot of things going like through my mind right now. Like you have so many books. How do you like sit down and write all these stories? I'm familiar, of course, with the Museum of the Omniverse, but like
Right.
you have many, many books. How
I've
does it
written
happen? Or like, do you sleep? Do-
not as much as I probably ought to. Now, one of the things that helps is my by day I write, of course. By night I operate telescopes for the National Observatory. So that's my night job.
Right.
But the beauty of that is that it's the kind of job that I go up to the observatory, I stay for a few nights, I get in what most people would get in as a 2 week work week, I get in about 6 nights. So I'm able to then take the
Oh,
rest of the 2 weeks off. And then that becomes kind of the time that I can devote full time to writing or editing or any of
right,
these other
right.
projects. So that's kind of how I do it. And I do spend a lot of time when I'm probably up way too long on those non-observing nights, doing writing and dreaming up ideas and coming up with ways to get it out there to people.
Something that definitely caught my eye, and I don't know if you could speak on it, is this vampire thing with Guinevere and can I
Oh,
speak on that? Or no?
the comic,
The
I
cover,
did,
the cover
yeah, there's
struck me. Thought it was very cool.
yeah, that was my debut comic book, and it's actually an adapted chapter from my Scarlet Order vampire world.
Okay.
There are 3 books in that world right now, and in fact, the newest
You
one I
have
have
them.
right here is
Oh,
Ordeal of
I
the
must be
Scarlet Order.
psychic. Okay. Very cool.
And but the Guinevere that's an adapted chapter from the first of my vampire books, and that was one of the some of the vampires actually got their start during the age of Arthurian Britain. So
Right,
King
right, right.
Arthur. So in fact, the idea is that one of the vampires, Lord Draco, and the vampire who made him have come across the idea of the Holy Grail. And they think of the Holy Grail as the thing being, of course, associated with the blood of Christ,
Right,
that
right.
this might be the thing that might present vampire salvation. And so that's
Ooh.
where the whole connection is with Guinevere, with Arthur, and my vampires in my world.
Do
So
you
yeah, it's
Do you go into like brutal depth? Like I know some sci-fi writers go a little bit like, like how they used to like stick like a chain in like the throat and like stick a nail in the head on the corpse so they don't come alive. Hey, it's really very much real in Romania. They still believe like in
right.
vampires and stuff. So is it like graphic like that or is it like
I,
soft?
I'm not super graphic just because I'm not really into the really graphic
Blood,
vampire kind
blood,
of stuff,
blood.
but it's like the whole idea is my vampires, my vampires are the kind of vampires that they're
Are they pretty?
they have to they basically have to make an unliving, as it were. So they actually have to find a way to make it through the world and live with humanity because one of the tropes in a lot of the old vampire films was all the vampires are going to kill all the humans.
Right, right, right.
And I did not, it's like, why would you do that? Because the humans are your food. You want to kind of take care of them.
Very
And
true.
so I thought, vampires are super strong. They're super fast. They see well in the dark.
Yeah,
they sneak around. What if they became mercenaries for the crowned heads of Europe back in the
very
day? And so that was kind of my take was it's a whole team of vampire
right,
mercenaries.
right,
And
right.
then as we come into the modern age, and of course mercenaries aren't the thing anymore,
Right.
it turns out that different governments, different scientists are basically creating their own, super soldiers that they control a lot more
Right.
easily than these, unpredictable vampires who kind of do whatever it is that they want to do. And so,
Yeah, actually, it's a very interesting concept, which is why it caught my eye because when I think of a vampire, I think of somebody unruly. I almost think of a royalty in their own right. So
right,
it's interesting working alongside. It's like you can't tame that. How are you going to tame that? I mean,
exactly. And that's the problem that, people have with the vampires is that,
you
yeah,
know,
they're not tameable. They kind of
right.
do what they
This
want to
is
do.
this is kind of like mimicking like modern, stuff happening today, very
Right.
much. So, okay, I bet everybody asks you about like the observatory and the, telescope. Have you seen anything cool, like a shooting star or like a planet that's like 8,000 miles away?
Well, I have to say the really coolest thing I saw, and it partly was the circumstances of it, was back in the mid 90s. There was a comet called Shoemaker-Levy 9, and it was really famous because it came in and hit Jupiter. It looked like a whole string of pearls. And I
Wow.
got to look at this before it actually hit Jupiter. And I got to see it. The astronomer I was working with was a woman named Vera Rubin. And
Okay.
she's really famous as the woman who discovered this thing called dark matter, Basically,
Oh,
it's what holds galaxies together. So they
wonderful.
rotate a lot more like record disks than
Right, right,
like say what we call Keplerian orbits, to talk all fancy and astronomy, but it's basically where things near the center rotate really fast, like
right,
Mercury
right,
goes really fast around the sun,
right,
things further out are a little slower, and then you're
right.
out at the edge and it moves very slowly. But actually, galaxies rotate like disks, so there's something you're not seeing that's holding it all together. And that's what we call dark matter. But yeah, Vera Rubin was the person who discovered this, and she
Really?
wanted to go see Shoemaker-Levy 9. And it's like, you don't say no to someone like Vera Rubin. So we went off
Oh my
and
God.
took a look at the comet, and that was like really, really cool to see it before it ended up making all kinds of headlines, smacking into Jupiter. And yeah, and so yeah, we look at a lot of things. Our two big missions right now is we're looking at exoplanets, which
Nice.
are planets orbiting stars around other stars besides our own. And we also are following up on the discovery of dark energy, which was something that was partially discovered at Kitt Peak. And dark energy is basically means that how we know it exists is when we observe the universe, we discover that the universe is actually accelerating with time. So something
Right.
has to be speeding it up. So whatever that energy is that's speeding up the universe is this dark energy. And what we're doing right now is we're making the largest three-dimensional map of the entire universe with the 4-meter telescope up at Kitt Peak, the Mail telescope. And that's yeah, so we're just night after night getting 5,000 galaxies every 20 minutes that we're taking images of and figuring out their exact distances. And it's already in 3 years of our 5-year mission to get all Star Trek like. We're about to we've already got the largest 3D map of the known universe
Seriously?
so far. Yes.
Whoa. Why is it called dark energy instead of like light energy or like sparkle energy or like pink energy? Like why?
It's a
Is it
it's
like
a
dark matter energy?
yeah,
Like, is it like that's where?
it's a great question. And the short answer is dark just stands for unknown. It's
Okay.
just, or unseen in this case. So dark
Very
matter
cool.
because we don't see it, we haven't
Right,
found
right,
it. Dark energy just because we don't actually see what the source is of it.
right, right.
Mhm.
Do you believe in like astrology? Or is it like fallacy? You hate it. Hate everybody who like thinks about like the zodiac and all that, or is it like, ugh,
Well, I come at astrology with almost a historical sense because it's some of the great astronomers like Kepler actually made their living as astrologers for as court astrologers for people. So, I don't think I don't tend to think there's anything to astrology, but I find it fun, and I sneak a peek at my horoscope now and again.
ooh,
So.
when was the last time you did?
Oh, it's been a little while. It was a lot more common when they were in newspapers and we actually had newspapers. But I have a
They're
good
on
friend who
like
actually.
Yahoo. They're on like the site of Yahoo. Like it,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
okay,
that's there.
yeah. I have to go sneak a peek at that. But I do have a friend who writes like really silly horoscopes for a website
Okay.
called horrortree.com,
Okay.
and she writes like a monthly set of horoscopes, and there are things like how are Scorpios going to die.
Oh,
Or what horror movie is associated with Aries and so forth. So
well, being an Aries, I'm going to tell you every horror movie
okay.
associated. Oh my goodness. So the Museum of the Omniverse, I want to talk a little bit about that because that's like
Yeah,
a major project, how your stuff was adapted. So how did that come to
that
you with Eric?
Yeah, that was a big project. Eric and I actually met right here at Tucson a number of years ago. I'm not even sure if I remember how many years ago, probably at least 10 years ago. And just over time, we got to admiring each other's work. I got to see some of what he had been doing in film work,
Okay.
and he had been seeing what I had been doing in writing. And we just got together. We decided to meet up one night and see, was there something we could do where we could bring our mutual talents together to be of help to authors? And, we brainstormed a lot of different ideas, but after a few subsequent meetings, we had this idea of, well, we could create a series, essentially, almost an anthology series,
Right.
taking as our inspiration things like Twilight Zone and Outer Limits, which we grew up on, and, essentially present the stories of both well-known writers
Right.
and up and coming writers whose talent we really thought really deserves some elevation, and bring that together and present them. And ultimately, we talked about, would this be something we would pitch as a TV pilot, and
Right. Right.
what different ways could we do this? And Eric actually had this, that one of the stories that's in the first volume was a dragon story. And he thought, we have this audio story. What could we do with the audio story and with dragons? And I thought, we're talking about maybe pitching this TV concept. Why don't we see if we can adapt it to audio? Maybe this becomes kind of a tryout to see how well this
Right.
would
Right.
work, how well our framing story would work, how well this would go. And I had a couple of dragon stories, and that was the same year that Timothy Zahn was the guest of honor here at Tucson. So Eric had approached him about whether he might have a story for this, and I knew several authors who had stories that would work in this, and we just reached out to people and started pulling our resources together. And it took quite a bit of time to actually
Right.
assemble and do the first one, but a lot of that was the learning curve of how do we actually put all of this together, put the technical parts of pieces in place, and get casting to really bring out the best
Right.
actors in it. And yeah, once we finally all got it together, I think it really turned out to be quite a special
Yeah, it
project.
sounds
And
amazing. I
thank
listened
you.
to it. It sounds very amazing. I've told Eric it's so clear and crisp. It's
Yes.
a real, very high budget feel, actually.
Yeah. And in fact, I was telling about my wife was looking into being a small press. In fact, the very focus she had for Hadrosaur Productions when we started was to be an audio small press.
Oh,
So
okay.
really, this was a dream kind of come true to be able to take Eric's talents with Sealy Studios and our early interest with Hadrosaur Productions. And we had done things where we tried to do some things really early on in computers, and before
Right.
really computer editing got anywhere near the level that it is now. And we put together a pretty good production of my very first novel that we put out. But it's nothing, it's nothing I would share nowadays with the skills that are out, the skills and
Oh,
the projects that are out there now. The book I would certainly I would certainly share, but I think as far as, yeah, you can hear all that tape hiss. We were literally recording on
oh,
audio
those
tape,
things
and
are the best though because they really
yeah.
show growth. It shows a growth.
Hmm.
So I wouldn't be like, "Ah, I don't want to put out, if when you make it really, really big, when you
Yes.
make it really, really big, people are gonna love seeing that, seeing the beginning of Hadrosaur Productions. So like,
Yes.
make sure you have that backed up because that might come back around.
It might.
Seriously.
It might, and we did do some other projects, but mostly we ended up going more into the books, into the publishing end
Right.
of things. But it's really been really neat with Museum of the Omniverse to be able to come full circle and come back to the audio roots that we had really hoped to do. And it'd
Right.
be really fun if this ultimately did even become a video kind of project as well.
Ooh, like a video game?
Yeah, or even like a TV kind of
Oh,
project.
wow,
So
that's a really good idea. That sounds like
yeah.
really great. You know what, David? Are you David Lee or David? How do you like to be
Well,
addressed?
most people
For
call me
writing
David.
purposes?
Yeah, people pretty much call me David. My full name is David Lee Summers, and I always figured my parents gave me a great author name, so I use the whole thing when on the covers of my books, but I just go by Dave or David.
Okay, so Dave, you're like the smiliest person ever on the show. You're so smiley. It's wonderful.
Well, thank you.
Seriously, I love this.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's people tell me that I don't always feel as smiley as I probably look, but
Always the happiest people are always the saddest people. It's just the way it is, but
yes,
you're very smiley today and I love it. So,
thank you.
okay, what is next for you? Because I know you have these conventions, there's lots going on. So, is there anything that you could share on the show today?
Well, the things I can share about is, of course, Eric and I are busy starting to select stories for Museum of the Omniverse Part Two, the
Ooh,
Spacefarers exhibit, which is
very
all
cool.
about space travel. So we'll be doing that very soon. And the other thing I'm working on is actually is a book of vampire flash fiction that I'm doing. It's basically very short vampire stories, and I'm collaborating with an author named Lee Clark Zumpa, who I've worked with before. We did a collection called Blood Sampler a number of years ago, and now we're working on this new collection, and we need to get
Okay.
together and look at each other's stories and decide which ones we're going to actually use and which ones we're not going to use and go from there. So that's the next big project. And then after that, I'm probably the one that I'm kind of shaking in my boots about, but have promised a lot of people I'm going to work on is one of my novels is called The Astronomer's Crypt, and it's a horror
Okay.
story which imagines an observatory as a haunted house.
Ooh.
And I've been promising the sequel for a long time, and I think it is time that I sit down and actually do the sequel. So I need to
Wow.
I have not outlined it yet, but the ideas are starting to flow.
So
So
you do the editing on the stories too, or do you have an outside editor on once you have
so
everything?
yeah, a lot of my projects I do end up getting an outside editor to work with me on, just because I think it really is essential to have that
Right.
feedback on things. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
it's really easy to get in your own headspace
Yeah.
yeah, and you don't
I love
hear
this.
your
I love that.
mistakes.
Don't remove that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes my wife and my kids are my first best editors. I mean,
Oh,
you sort of say you don't you should be careful about having your family edit things because of course they sometimes are the ones that don't want to hurt your feelings. But
right.
one of the things I've learned is my kids don't really care about well, I won't say they don't care about hurting my feelings, but they're
Are they
sometimes very good
teenagers?
at being blunt.
Are they teenagers?
They started this when they were teenagers. They're now they're now in their 20s. So
Okay.
yeah. But just out of college and having that sort of just out of college, we've had these classes more recently than you, Dad,
Oh my
attitude. So
goodness. Ah! Oh, I don't know how you're taking that.
well, it's like I try to stay in their good graces. One of them's making, already making more money than I am. So
David, you're their dad. Oh my God. You're their dad. Stop. You can't let that happen. Okay. Then what happens? Then you're gonna be grandpa and then it's good. No. Oh my God. Action now. Are they following in your footsteps with like astronomy and all this stuff?
well, my youngest just got her degree in geology,
Oh, you
so
must be very proud.
I am, and actually with a specialty in paleontology. So the Hadrosaur Productions,
Oh,
dinosaurs, that definitely I think had an influence on Verity. And my oldest got a math degree, which is following in the footsteps of my wife,
nice.
who had a mathematics degree and but is now a computer programmer and does medical software.
Brilliant.
So yes.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, David, for coming on Lillee Jean Talks Live. You are always welcome back on, especially with the new Omniverse. Come on.
Oh,
That
thank
is
you.
going to be amazing.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me on.
On your what website could people see like all your stuff on? Because I know you have several.
Yeah, the probably the best all-around website is davidleesummers.com. And I also have a blog at davidleesummers.wordpress.com. So both of those are really kind of a good entry point for coming and learning about my work.
Love that. You guys could check out this episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, and of course, lillyjean.com.